Okay guys, I'm going to show you guys on how to change the hydraulic fluid on a Gehl Z35. And before we start, there's a few things we got to do. One is turn the machine in this position, the blade in front, boom to the right, boom all the way open, bucket down, just the way you see it. And then on top of changing the fluids, or the hydraulic fluid, we're going to change the suction filter and the return filter. And this is all part of the 1,000-hour service of this machine. So I'm going to go in order and try to make it as painless as possible. The first step we got to do is take off two bolts that are underneath the machine right here and expose. It looks like three, but it's really only two. One stays there. We're gonna loosen up the bolts and remove data plate and get access to the bolt to the drain plug. Next thing you do is loosen up the oil hydraulic fluid cap, and this acts as like a suction. So like you have the dining, you put your finger on the straw, you let it open, and it sucks out. Come on down here, and then you just want to leave it loose so the water can suction out. And underneath here is the drain plug. Camera, it's 1" 16" drain plug, and there's two plugs here. 1" 16" is the one we need, and it's on that side. There's a smaller one on this side, and that is for the radiator fluid, so don't touch that one. So the next thing we have to do is crack that open. We're going to crack it, get it ready, and then get a couple of pails, roughly 10 gallons. Now that we cracked that loose, we just got to loosen it up just a little bit more, and you got to get a bucket here ready to go, because out comes roughly 10.6 gallons of hydraulic fluid. When you undo it though, make sure you grab it and get ready, because it's gonna come. All right, and I'm getting close. I could tell by the size, the amount of threads that are open. There we go. And that's exactly what we want. We want to dump the whole system and save this right here, the drain plug. We're gonna get a rag. Hurry up guys, get a bucket, get ready, and get ready. Hold this, hold the bucket, hold this. All right, ready? And we're almost there, so 1, 2, that's it. And we might need a little bit more, because like that. Okay, let that fill up. It comes out pretty quick. It's based on pressure. It's only 10 gallons. That bucket was 5, the first one. This is 5, but we're not going to go all the way to the tippy top with it. And then we're going to try to do some kind of slick move here. It's slowing down a little bit. You can see the pressure, but the bucket's filling up, and that'll do the rest of the bucket. And of course, we spilled it everywhere. So that's going to take care of the rest of the draining. When we put the new hydraulic fluid, we'll have 2 empty cans. And then we'll put the dirty oil in the cans that the new oil came in, and then we'll get rid of it the right way. Turn it on. So while this is dropping down, the last little bit of it, we're going to change the return filter element. Part number is right there. It's 502-82822, and it's right underneath the one here with the hook. And we have to use a 12mm, and it gets right on there. So that filter, I'll show you what it looks like. That's it right there. It goes right underneath the one with the hook. So what you got to do is you got to loosen the 3 nuts there, and then you got to pull it up. And there's a spring there and an O-ring. We just can't lose it. And before we remove it, we're going to just wipe this area down, make sure there's no dust in there, and then we'll get started. Done? Yes. So as I'm loosening this up, now more air is getting into the hydraulic reservoir, and if you look down here, more is bleeding out. So that's another reason why you loosen up everything. This is spring loaded, so you got to watch it, because it'll pop out and end up in the dirt somewhere. So you just got to go real slow like that. Take all the screws off, nice and easy. Put them someplace, and then you lift this up like that. Just place it down somewhere so it's not going to get dirty. You save the spring. That's the spring there. This little guy here right? And then inside here is the dirty filter. Give me the new filter. Take it out. When you take it out, just let it drain in the bucket. That's a good spot for it right there. I don't believe there's a top or a bottom end, so we're just gonna drop that in like that, put this piece back on, put the spring back in the middle like that, right? That goes in there like such, and then this thing will go back on. This goes like this. The holes line up. This little thing is for the grease gun, so you could store it. And when you put it on, there's no torque pattern in the manual, but you know, when you put these nut bolts on, make them hand tight first, and you should crank them down like you were doing a tire, you know, a turn or two on each one and go down uniformly, and make sure they seat like roughly at the same time, because if not, you'll crush an O-ring, you'll put too much pressure on it, and then it'll leak. Now that we have this all seated, we just give it a nice and tight. Don't over tighten it, because you'll strip it out and then you'll have to retap something. That's a real pain in the ass by itself. And then always wipe the area clean, you know what I mean? This way, if it's clean, when you start it and run it for a little while, if it's clean, you'll know immediately if it's leaking. And that's that. The next is we're going to do the suction filter, which is right underneath the oil cap plug. Again, it's the 12 millimeter. We're going to loosen these up. That's tightening. One at a time. We just crack them, get them loose, and then we're going to pull them all up at the same time. Change the element, and then when we go to put this back, do the same exact way. We're going to seat the cap, snug them up in a triangle pattern, and then crank them down uniformly so we don't crush anything underneath it. That's it. It's loose enough. We can probably do this by hand. Okay. So you push that down. That's one up. We're just going to save these right there. It's a good spot. See, it's getting tight again. So. Again, I believe this is spring loaded underneath here, so we're going to have to loosen them up nice and carefully. Okay, now that all these bolts are off, it's spring loaded, so it's a little tricky. This is probably another trick of itself, which I can't get out. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to move this out of the way. Oh, there it goes. You got to just kind of go in this weird little direction. So this little guy comes out like this. And again, you want to store this someplace where it's not going to get dirty. And then you got to put your hand inside here and grab the spring. We'll put the spring just like that, because that's the way it goes back in. And then down there, you got to reach in here and pull that up. And then there's the filter element. So now you just unspin this filter element. Again, if you're worried about dirty hands, you're in the wrong business. We got to loosen that nut up there. Oops, let's put this in the bucket. We got to loosen this nut here, remove it, and then put the new one on, which is in that box. Kill it. All right, so what you got to do is you need a 14 millimeter. You got to crack that. Be careful, you don't want to bend the rod. Once you get it cracked, you kind of loosen up the filter like this. Just unspin it off, right? And hold on, just toss that in there, put the new one back on. That's it, like that. I always try to loosen up the nut just a little bit, because then I know exactly where it goes on the return. So that's about 3 nuts, that's where it was. And then you snug this up, and then don't make it too tight. I mean, you know, just good and tight. Now inside the reservoir for the hydraulic fluid, there's a little spot for this. It's always good just to rub your finger on it, kind of lube it up a little bit. This should pop right in and seat itself. You may have to put a little pressure on it, but it come out that way. So we're gonna pop it in. Next, you got to put that in there like that, close. I felt it, and I pushed it in. And it'll just stay just like that. Can you get in there and see a shot of it?
Yep.
And that's that. Then you got to go back in reverse order. It's take that out. We put the spring back in that little circle that was there. Careful, you don't want to drop that thing. And before you get started, you want to kind of have an idea of where these holes line up. Just like that. And then got to make sure that spring is in that hole, because if not, you'll drop that thing in there and you'll have to go fishing. So now that we're in there, it's up there a little bit. We got to take the screws and just get them started hand snug, just a little bit like that. It's one. Now you'll know if that thing is seated, because if there's no pressure on this cap, the spring isn't in the right spot, and then you got to go fish. So there you go. And again, always line up all the holes and kind of, make them hand tight all the way around. Tighten that up. You just only give it a couple cranks on each one. And you just keep going in circles until they snug up. And then that'll be the end of that. Right? All right, so now you just got to give these a snug in a pattern. Just don't over tighten them, because you don't want to strip nothing. It seems crazy, but once this is on, you dry everything again, because if there's a leak here, you could always make it a little tighter, but if you strip it, then you're gonna have to retap it and get a bigger nut, and then it becomes a much bigger pain in the ass. But clean this really good, leave the cap on a little bit. All right, we're getting close to the hydraulic fluid change and the filters, so only a couple more steps and then we're done. Okay, now that this is pretty, I'm going to kill the camera in a second, this way we don't waste film and time, but you really want to make this area pretty clean. When I'm done, I'm going to blow this out, vacuum it before I fill it, or maybe I'll fill it first and then vacuum and clean it, because I'll probably spill some. Okay, so one of the last, now after you change all the filters, you got to come back here to the original drain plug, which is 1.16". You want to inspect that O-ring, make sure there's no burrs on it, and definitely make sure it's there. If it's not there, it's definitely going to leak, and then you're going to have a problem. When you're inspecting it, make sure there's no dirt on it from just whatever. So just, give it a cleaning, and then we put it in there and tighten it up. All right, so see this little nut here? That's where the drain plug goes back. Before you start torquing it down, go back and forth a few times just to make sure you're in the right thread and it's not cross-threaded. If it's cross-threaded, you'll know pretty quickly, but if it's not, you'll be able to get it hand tight pretty fast, like all the way in. If you're cross-threading, stop immediately and back it off and go slower and get it on. If you cross-thread it, you'll definitely have a leak. All right, so we're just about done. We just put the drain plug back in the Z35, and this is the hydraulic fluid that's recommended. I went to the Gehl dealer and they gave me this ISO 46. It's anti-wear hydraulic fluid. Whenever you put hydraulic fluid in a machine, or any oils in a machine, it's always best to use if you want to use a funnel, but not just a funnel, but try to get a funnel with a screen in it. Just God forbid you get any debris in there, it'll catch it in the screen. It's just one more thing that'll save your filter, and it'll avoid any backups. So you put it, somewhere like that, and then that's the end of it. Let's just fill it up and we give it a go. Okay, we just started the machine, and we ran through all the cycles and controls and all the movements, and everything works good. The very last step now is to clean up, put the data plate on the bottom, just a couple of screws, and get to work. If you guys like the video, please like it and share it. And if you guys have any questions, drop me a line and hopefully I'll respond. Probably not, but sounds good. Everybody else says it.